Veri.Vote.
Thanks, sir. And can I have a round of applause for Marcus as well for doing such a tremendous job this weekend. He has pulled it together, he's chased us around, building cats as he puts it. Thank you so much for doing this. And these guys as well. Thank you so much. Well, my name's Cam. We are Veri.Vote, and we are going to revolutionise the democratic process using Bitcoin technology. At the moment, our democratic process and the voting system is broken. Last year, over 1,000 votes mysteriously fell off the back of a ute here in Western Australia, and what that meant was over 1 million Western Australians had to go back to the ballot to recast their votes. This is happening in Australia today. It's ridiculous. The cost was $21 million to the taxpayers of Australia, and I was actually personally involved in the recount process in this room where 1 metre long pieces of paper were being hand counted 3 times by 200 people, and it took 3 weeks. It was stupid. Now, this is in WA. There are developing countries which have problems with voting as well, and we want to help solve that too. At the moment, digital voting has the sort of trust levels that maybe e-commerce had 15 years ago. The reason being is it's not completely anonymous, which voting really needs to be. Prone to hacking, and anyone can vote on your behalf, so there's an authentication issue there. Now, we've solved that with blockchain technology. Blockchain and Bitcoin, for those who don't know, I'll give a really quick explanation. It's a decentralised system. It's trustless, which means even if you don't trust the operators or the participants, you can trust the system because 1 + 1 equals 2. And then anyone can actually go back and verify that their vote was cast because the codes and the rules are open source to anybody. We've come up with an incredibly elegant and watertight process. It can be used for voting on anything from your favourite dress colour to the US presidential election. Basically, you use the same authentication processes as you do at the moment. Show your ID, check that you're on the roll. You get given your encrypted code, which might be a barcode. Go to a touch screen, scan your code, place your ballot. Then from there, your vote is encrypted. No one will ever know who you voted for, but the fact that you voted has been recorded. And then at 6 PM Saturday night, election night, the elections are instantly published. And after the process, you can take your code back home and check that your vote has actually been cast and has not been tampered with. So our target market's anyone who runs elections, anyone from not-for-profit boards, publicly listed companies who need to elect chairmen, university guilds, state government, federal government. We've had some pretty in-depth conversations with some key decision makers here in Western Australia this weekend. I spoke to the Lord Mayor. She said that anything along these lines is going to be really welcomed. Anything which makes easy, secure, anonymous and cost-effective elections. So elections are not cheap, they're very labour intensive. We also spoke to the guy who makes decisions on this stuff in WA, the Minister for Electoral Affairs, and we've also secured an undertaking from one of the major political parties to trial this in one of their internal processes. So the competition, no one uses blockchain, so that's why you see a sea of crosses there. And that's just simply because they can't guarantee any of these things without the encrypted process that blockchain offers. And the AEC certainly is not completely secure, as we saw last year. So our team, we've got a really full bench here. These guys are having a remarkable skill set. We've got computer scientists, mathematicians. These guys know their stuff, and I've seen that over the past 2 days. They've built this system from the ground up, and it's live and it works. It's impressive. We've also got a guild counsellor at Curtin, who can't be with us, Matt, and myself. I've got 5 years' experience in politics. So this is why we're better. We are actually 10 times better than the incumbent system. It's because we're 10 times cheaper, but also because of all the assurances that we can absolutely guarantee. The open sourceness, the trustiness, the verification systems that we have. We want to start out a little bit like SurveyMonkey, where we offer free voting to anybody under 200 electors. Once you bump above that, you pay a monthly fee and $1 per vote. And then we scale up, and we're still far cheaper than any traditional voting process. So next up, we want to get some trials on the road and start validating the actual technology and public audit through a bug bounty. So we're Veri.Vote, and we want to create a worldwide best practice standard for all elections. Questions, please.
Congratulations, guys. I think you've done a superb job, and I think it's a much-needed system.
These guys are amazing.
Fantastic. I'm also impressed with the traction you've got with the round people, so well done on what you've achieved this weekend.
Thank you.
One thing voters hate is having to go to voting booths and stand in line and vote there. Is there any thought in mind that you could vote from a mobile device, and how we could do it so each person gets one vote only?
Yeah, certainly. So I guess at the root of the whole process is some sort of verification of your identity. So traditionally that's done with ID in person, but increasingly Australians are registering with online accounts with the government, such as through MyGov to do tax. I did my tax last year using an online account, and with Centrelink and other government services. So we find it increasingly likely that it would be possible to extend this service to using online authentication for a public identity instead of a physical presence.
I just wanted to add as well, I guess it really just depends on the type of election that's being run and what the preference for the election is. If you really do need physical presence there, I guess that's a situation you have to handle yourself, but the back end itself can be implemented for the election. It's just really whoever's sort of running the election, their decision at that point needs to be, do I actually need physical sort of presentation there, or can we actually do this online? It's their decision, and the system can handle it either way.
Just a couple of questions. In terms of the size of the market, obviously the size is huge. We're talking about governments using it. Some of that might take a very long time for the legislative reform to be put in place to allow for this kind of voting rather than traditional types of voting. So in terms of the early days, where is your market? Where are you going to make your money in terms of how it's going to be used?
I'm sure Cam can touch on it more, but this also applies, like Cam mentioned sort of briefly, you could have online polling use the system at sort of much cheaper rates, because I guess that's another thing. When you're doing an online poll, you might say, what's stopping them from just really sort of lying about the results and just preferencing things people have paid, sponsors, whatever. You can actually use the system and people can go verify that actually the system has worked. For simple things like, which game reviews or something like that, which game you review or something like that.
Yeah, the legislative change isn't as massive as you probably think. At the moment, local government elections, you probably all took part in it a few weeks ago, are done by post, which is madness. I mean, you can sign anyone can pretend that you're voting on someone else's behalf. So something like this could be rolled out reasonably quickly at a local level. I think you're right, it might be 2 or 3 years away from having state or federal elections run by this system, but it'll be probably quicker than you think.
So just to add one last thing, initially this idea came to us at university, doing the university guild elections, and the guild currently spends $50,000 a year at UWA running the guild elections. And we do that for a significant reduction of the cost, and we feel that the university would be far more amicable to change at that stage.
It's a really cool idea, guys, and incredibly scalable, and certainly when I say scalable, I can imagine all sorts of situations around the world where this could be used and potentially accessed very easily, being through the online platform. How are you 10 times cheaper? I'm just trying to get my head around, because this is a very obvious thing that the market's constantly using in its present form. How is yours so much more economical?
For example, the last federal election cost $200 million just for the AEC to administer that. That was mainly labour costs, physical counting of ballot papers, and the people who were administering the actual voting process, maybe 10,000 polling booths around the country.
Outside of changing the political voting system, is it still economical? Because that's a big hope that they take on your system.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many other scenarios where it could be used, and is it still competitive?
Yeah, sure. So if you look at postal voting, 70 cents for an envelope one way, 70 cents for an envelope back, it's $1.40.
But I mean like a traditional vote, not what I mean by companies or whatever, anything outside of politics where paper and silly processes isn't used. Does it still fit?
Yeah, I guess our real sort of add value point is that complete surety. Complete assurity that it works, and people that are voting can go check that their vote has been cast correctly, it hasn't been lied about, but then they can also go check everyone else's votes, but anonymously, so no one's name is tied to their vote, but you can see everyone else's votes that are up there. So it's more that sort of value point that you're assured that it's actually working, I guess is the real point. And I think a lot of people as well will trust more in a system that uses that and be more willing to sort of go through that process.
But you do have a cost at this stage of setting up voting terminals and network governance and stuff.
Yeah, well, given your earlier question of being able to vote from home, that would avoid the cost of setting up the terminals altogether. But the required hardware to implement a system like this would be fairly minimal. You could use something like a Raspberry Pi, which would only cost about $20 a unit, plus some sort of interface to that system. So.
Hey guys, I love it. I use it, and I can really see.
Sorry, we're out of time.
Thanks, mate.
Come talk to us afterwards.